Hey everybody, I know it's been a couple months since our last video. All I can say is the fall is very, very busy. I got football season going. We've added flag football this year. I do soccer too. I'm doing both photo and video. So yeah, fall is very busy for me. Plus I got an opportunity to do 2 weeks in the UK, Ireland, Scotland, England. So I couldn't really pass that up, even though it was my busy season. So there you go. Anyway, I'm back at it and hopefully put out some good content here. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the questions I get quite often in the forums when I post photos, for like on dark football fields is how am I shooting this and what kind of ISOs am I getting and what is my workflow? And the reason being is people are noting that the photos I'm posting have generally fairly smooth and sharp grain patterns, even though I'm using very high ISOs on a camera that has very high megapixels, which should have tons of grain. And in reality, it really does. So let me walk you through a process. I'll show you everything that I do, and you can try it yourself and see if it works for you. Now, the first thing is I shoot in RAW. And I know there's a lot of people out there who swear up and down that JPEG is the way to go for sports, or I've shot sports for years and all I ever did was shoot JPEG, works fine. RAW, let me see, the other thing is RAW takes too long to edit, JPEG's much quicker, yada, yada, yada. I hear this all the time. All right, well, I recently did some tests with some other Max Preps photographers who were using high-end professional level cameras from Nikon, Canon, and Sony, and we did some tests. And guess what happened? The raw images, using good technique to clean up the grain, produces far superior images over the JPEGs. And these were flagship cameras from all three brands. So there's something to it there. And I'm going to put out a separate video on that particular subject, but I'm going to show you my technique. This is for the Nikon Z9. It'll also work for the Nikon Z8. And really, it should work for any high megapixel camera. And for that matter, it'll work for any medium, when I say medium, like around 20 megapixels camera that's out there. And I will tell you, you will find superior images when you use this technique, at least in my estimation, based on my experience. So with that, let's get going. Okay, we've already said that we're going to shoot in RAW. The first thing I do is take it into a program called Photomechanic to cull. Now, when I do a game, I'm usually using 2 camera bodies, shooting 20 frames a second, and I'll usually come home with over 3,000 images, which is a lot. This is for a gallery that's going to be maybe a little over 100 on the final. So obviously there's a lot of images that need to get culled. And I use Photomechanic because it renders raw images, well, any image, extremely quickly, much faster than my Lightroom will render the exact same image, where everything comes up. So let's go to it right now. I'm going to show you just briefly how I do it. Some people, especially a lot of pros, will use Photomechanic to add some metadata, and they'll perhaps even check sharpness, and they'll even perhaps do cropping. I don't do that. I just use it for culling. The company that makes Photomechanic has their own YouTube channel. I'll link it below, and you can check them out and see all the things that Photomechanic could do for you. But with that, let's get going into, I'm in Photomechanic right now. Here's a whole group of images I shot recently at a high school football game. And I'm just going to walk you through this. And let's just pull up the first one. So basically the technique I use is that on this program, if you press T, it's called tagging it. It puts a little check mark on it down here at the bottom. And I've set it up so it'll automatically advance, which is great. If you don't want the image, I just press this is on a Windows keyboard, but I just press the arrow that goes to the right and it advances to the next one. With that, let's just go through them real quick. And let me see this one, a little obscured. And I kind of like that one. This one's pretty good. No, no. And really, I'm just looking for, is it look somewhat in focus? Does it look focus? I'm not doing a deep dive for focus. I'm just looking, is it obviously out of focus? And I'm also looking for, what does the image look like? Are they obscured? Can I see a face? Does it show an action? Those kind of things. So anyway, going through this, and I'm just going to pick a few as I go through here. I'm not going to do all these just for time purposes. All right, you get the idea. Then what I do is, let me minimize this or make it smaller anyway. Then I'm going to go up here to Edit, select Tagged. There's a bunch that I've already tagged. I'm going to go to File, Copy, Move Photos. Go over here to Move Photos, Delete Originals. I'll tell you what, I am not going to delete originals, but I am going to copy to a folder. I designated that folder right here, and I'm going to hit Copy, and it will copy them all over. And from here, after I've culled down from that original 3,000 to about 1,000, I'm going to take it into Dxo Pure Raw 4. And that is my preferred choice when I'm batch editing over a lot of other things. I've done a lot of testing on noise reduction, and the two noise reduction systems I like right now that I feel are superior to all the others out there right now are Dxo Pure Raw 4 and the Denoise AI module in Lightroom Classic, and I believe it's also in Photoshop. Let's go over to Dxo Pure Raw and we'll get these started. Okay, I got Dxo Pure Raw 4 up, add raw files to Lightbox, and I go find where I had them. And I'm going to add the photos. It'll populate it. And I go down here to the lower right, hit Process. It's going to ask me where I want it to go. This is the place I want it to go. Oh, by the way, if it recognizes a camera and a lens combination it hasn't seen before, or you say you go and buy a new lens and you start taking photos with it, it'll recognize that lens. I haven't had a lens yet that it didn't recognize, old or new, and it will download modules that actually fit that particular camera lens combination to make it sharper. So it will actually do some sharpening for you in Dxo Pure Raw. So that's why I like to use it. So I'll hit Process now. With this small batch, it's saying it's only going to take 6 minutes. So, but with 1,000 images, I'm looking at like 3 or 4 hours. So in that case, usually, so I shot a game at night, usually they're at night. I get it going, I do the culling, I get it going in Pure Raw 4, and then I go to bed. Come back the next day, and there's all the images. That's one way to do it. You could also use Pure Raw 4 as not just a standalone, but as a plugin in Lightroom. You can do that, but there's another technique, which I mentioned earlier, the Lightroom Denoise module that works very well too. I don't like it as much for batch processing. I think Pure Raw 4 does a better job with batch processing, which is why I use it this way. Let's get over to Lightroom and we'll show you how it all comes out. Okay, I don't have all the images that I just culled. I just do some select here. And what I've done is, you can see this image right here is very grainy, very noisy, really nasty looking. This one is what Pure Raw 4 came up with. So you can see it's much more cleaned up. It's been sharpened. It's still retained lots of detail in the whites, which if you shoot JPEG, you may not always keep all the details. I have found whites often get blown out very easily when it comes to JPEG. The reason I like shooting RAW is because it retains a lot of that detail that you could say. Now, I also, when I imported all these, it imports as, I choose to do it as a DNG out of Pure Raw 4. You could also do it as a TIFF file, and I should have mentioned that earlier, but I prefer it as a DNG, and Lightroom will treat it as a RAW file. So I use my own presets and I apply them to it on import. So all that complaining about, oh, I have to do so much editing with RAW, I use my presets and I do it on import, and it's like that. It's instantaneous. So I don't get the whole, I need to do more editing with RAW. Over here on the right-hand side, you can see all my presets. This is for one I use for night games or indoors at gymnasiums. And I will put in the description below what all the values are for these sliders so you can try it out for yourself. All right, so either way, the thing is with Pure Raw 4, like I mentioned earlier, it does its own sharpening. So I will turn off sharpening when I use these files that come out of Pure Raw 4. So say you don't want to go through the process of going through that bulk processing with Pure Raw 4. Okay, well, here's another way to do it. You see over here, noise reduction, denoise. That is a fairly recent addition to Lightroom by Adobe about 6 months ago or so. And I tell you, it completely revolutionized Lightroom. I used to hate on Lightroom big time for its noise reduction, which is why I started using all the other noise reduction products. But I have to say, the noise reduction in Lightroom is pretty darn good now. This AI version, this is ISO 18,000. Usually I set up around 70 for that. If it's down around 3,000, I might use 50, but let's go with 70 for now. Estimated time, 15 seconds. I found that is not really true. Usually it's double that. But either way, I'll hit enhance and it'll do its work. And what it's going to do is create another DNG file with all of my settings already in there. And we'll see how Lightroom's denoise program works. Like I say, I prefer this methodology with smaller numbers of photos. I have found in the past, at least with my computer, that if I try to batch process 1,000 images like this, it'll crash, it'll lock up, or it'll skip images. So that's why I don't do it that way. All right, so here is the Lightroom version, and you can see it is really nice and really clean, and it darkened it up a little bit, and you do have to sharpen these up. You'll notice I have sharpening right here. It came out a little darker, no big deal. Fix that. It is a very close approximation to what Dxo Pure Raw 4 does. I have found, though, the only other thing I would say about the Lightroom version of denoise programs is that your image has to be like tack sharp. It's really true with Pure Raw 4 too, but even more so with the Lightroom denoise. And from there, you have it. You have my process to get really excellent images from shooting raw images through one of these two noise reduction programs, using a good preset ahead of time as you import it, and you got beautiful images right from the get-go. I would argue are superior to what you can get from a JPEG. All right, there you have it. That's my secret sauce for getting good, clean, sharp, colorful images from high ISO situations, even with high megapixel cameras. I would love to hear your comments. I'm sure I will get many, including some of those diehard JPEG shooters out there. But anyway, that's how I do it. And I'm curious what y'all are doing out there. If you think there's a better way, I'd love to hear about it. All right, until next time.